Rachel Wolff. I am the marketing specialist in research, analytics, and planning at the Walker Art Center, which is a contemporary art institution in Minneapolis, Minnesota, so in the upper Midwest. And I came to this work, to research and evaluation work, really from an institutional need. We were beginning to set goals around diversity and inclusion and access, and realizing that in setting those goals, we often lacked baseline information or sort of real on-the-ground information about our visitors and about visitor experience. And that prompted the institution to start to prioritize this work differently, and to, along with several other hats that I wear, for me to begin to do some more dedicated audience research and evaluation work.
And I'm Alice Anderson. My title is Manager of Audience Research and Impact. And I've been at MIA for almost 2 years. The role I have is new for the museum. The museum has done visitor research for quite a while, as well as consulted with market researchers or evaluators, educational researchers to understand, what visitors think, feel, and learn at the museum. But I think it was with the most recent strategic plan that the museum identified a need, kind of like what Rachel was saying, for someone to coordinate efforts, especially in setting the type of outcomes that they were articulating in that strategic plan, and knowing that not one program or initiative would be achieving that outcome. It would really be this integrated effort. So I work within our education department, but I work throughout the museum. I find often that I'm working with other sort of mid-level managers of divisions, or I should say of departments within divisions, to help them articulate what their goals are for their programs or experiences for visitors. And so it's really in those partnerships that we come to identify what we need to understand about our visitors, either what their current interest or behavior or attitudes are, or what a relationship would look like to include their input towards a sort of co-created model of experiences, exhibitions at the museum. And so in both of those ways, either whether it's evaluating something that exists or imagining something that could be, I often find that I play a role of a facilitator. And so I'm often asking question after question to get people even more narrow on what their goals are, or why that might be important for them, their program, and the institution. And I think in doing that, we're really building up to being, I guess, in part more comfortable talking about who's not coming to the museum and why, and also ways in which we might need to start doing things differently.
In most research and evaluation inside the Walker, those are maybe direct stakeholders in these conversations. But in addition, I think it can be really important to, beyond senior leaders, identify champions or allies across the institution who may be impacted by this work or interested in this work, but not at the table initially, or so people in the director's office, or people in membership, members of our curatorial team, my colleagues in marketing, to really approach this as work that we do in partnership, work that we do in collaboration, and work that we do collectively. And I would say that on some level, that's a little bit of a contrast to how some of our other DEAI work happens. We also have diversity and inclusion and access specific goals in terms of our staff, in terms of our board, and those are really housed inside and led very clearly by our human resources department, whereas our audience work and our visitor engagement and community work is much more diffuse throughout the institution. There are many more people who contribute to those programs or who contribute to those conversations. So in my role as an evaluator, I try to keep those lines of communication open, and sometimes really try to bring those people to the table in order to have those conversations at the start of something, and really try to think about it as questions that the institution as a whole is tackling rather than questions that one department or one person within a department is accountable to answering or responsible for answering.
Doing this work can feel very isolating and challenging, even if you're committed to it. And so I think one thing that I've tried to do better at is include others, either when I'm, meeting with someone or in a larger meeting, really trying to help that make sure that someone else sort of knows what, I don't know, sort of like on the same page about where I'm gonna ask for clarity, how I might push on certain ideas. And so it's just makes me feel like someone's got my back in the room when sometimes I'm really pressing for, why is that important? Who is it important to? How might we broaden or expand or think differently about what we're talking about here that could be more inclusive, more people could see themselves a part of, that kind of thing. And so I think in that term, thinking about the type of evaluators that there are in the world, I think I'm really sort of a facilitator, kind of like what Rachel said, but bringing people together and helping us all clarify our ideas that lead up to this big effort. And so there are many resources out there around thinking about how to lead conversations, reflective conversations, looking at data reflectively, also taking on small, almost action research like projects together that get you all ownership over that data, something called team-based inquiry that really puts a team, the team nature, the collaborative nature at the heart of doing research or evaluation, and that its inquiry is really thinking about what can we learn from this particular experience, what information do we need to know to actually make a decision.
Something that we've talked about often is how meaningful it's been to communicate across institutions and organizations and really to see each other as resources in this work. And particularly for me, coming from a non-sort of formal research and evaluation background and growing into this work and learning this work as I do it, it's become essential to establish that network of individuals who are out there who are doing this work, and we can talk and sort through these problems together as well. And I think C.A.R.E through AAM provides a really great basis for that and is an amazing sort of tool and resource to use in that way, to think geographically about who can be a resource and to reach out to other institutions. I've never reached out to an institution and had someone not want to talk to me, which is really nice. Or particularly as I was beginning to think about what kind of audience research we could do, really building from the ground up, other art institutions, other museums were amazing examples and continue to provide a lot of guidance in that. And I think what's really helpful about that is that it also helps us understand that in this DEAI work, we're not in competition as cultural institutions. We are really in partnership, not just with our internal staff members, but with each other as people that do this work and who understand that our purpose is to better serve our audiences and our communities. And DEAI is a pillar of that, understanding who our audiences are and what experiences they're having when they come into our spaces is really key. So I feel like knowing that, we're not in competition, that we work together, that we also check each other, that we have opportunities to say, here's something at my institution, or I hear you talking about your institution in a way that actually I would question or I would push back on, and really to see ourselves as people who, and researchers and evaluators who live out those values kind of side by side has been really important as a resource, I think, for both of us.
I agree. It's been really helpful for each other to kind of push each other, hold each other accountable. Mm-hmm. That's, I think, another role that we play is holding our colleagues accountable to the goals that we've set out, and not in a punitive way, but in a generative way, because that, we're dealing with humans here. We're accountable to people, and we want we want people to come to museums and love them like we do, and we know that that isn't happening for a lot of folks. And so I think the accountability in this instance is to push this vision forward in a way that will only better the field as well.